Hello, it is me, Elizabeth, and say hi, my little girl here, my doll, my reborn baby girl here, Noelle. And well, today I figured I'd just come on and make a video. I haven't made one in a long time, but part of my New Year's resolution is to post videos on a more regular basis. So my channel's name is She's an Anomaly. And well, I have an introduction video as to why I named the channel that. But it kind of took me a while to get started making videos because I didn't kind of really know what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. And I kind of just ramble on and not have a real theme of what I wanted to do. And sometimes getting started doing things is not always easy for me. But anyway, I guess maybe I'll do an introduction to myself for this video. My name is Elizabeth. I am 34 years old now. I have a bachelor's degree in biology from Spelman College. I have a master's degree in human services counseling with a cognitive life coaching from Liberty University. I also have autism. I've also got attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I also have obsessive compulsive disorder. And definitely, I also have generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, as well as sinus tachycardia, which is a dysautonomia for dealing with my heart. But I've learned somehow to live life, and sometimes it's not always easy. Maneuvering and doing things, especially when you have, I also have lots of allergies. And sometimes it's not always easy because sometimes I am very sore and have other issues that I'm just not sure what they are, what I'm dealing with. Sometimes I can have an allergic reaction to something and I don't know why. Sometimes I can just become very tired and worn out. I was not diagnosed with autism or any of the other disorders until I was 22. So, as time went on, when I was younger, I seemed to be pretty normal for the most part. But I learned how to read when I was 3. And I began reading very big books by the time I turned 7 and 8 years old. So when I was 8 and 9 years old, I was reading books on genetics, diabetes, cardiology. I like to study books on NASA, space travel, well, really anything I could learn from. One of my favorite poets as a child, and when I say a child, I mean between the ages, when starting at age 8, my favorite poet was Edgar Allan Poe, and my favorite poem was The Raven. So I thoroughly enjoyed The Raven. One of my other favorite poets was Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, and my other favorite poem was The Song of Hiawatha. So those were some of my favorite things. I also am a Bible fanatic. Besides being Christian, I'm Pentecostal holiness, but I love to tell people, I love to say that I break every stereotype of being Pentecostal holiness. I'm not one of those judgmental people who's Pentecostal holiness because I am autistic. I do have other disorders, so it means that I'm constantly having to tweak things. I enjoy living a Pentecostal life, but I also have to figure out ways to deal with my sensory issues. So, yes, I do take her to church with me. Yes, and my church is very much okay with the way I am and how I do things. We've even changed how our anointing service goes. So, back to even with what I like to read. From as a kid, I love The Raven. I love Edgar Allan Poe. I enjoyed reading all kinds of books. And from early on, I was a bookworm. And then by the time I got to high school, I really had read majority of all of the books and all the stories that I needed to read by the time I got there. I was homeschooled all the way, thankfully. So then after I graduated from college, I really had to kind of find myself because I didn't really fit in the norm of what most people were like. I am, while I enjoy While I enjoy science, I also enjoy philosophy. I enjoy religion. I enjoy theology. I enjoy anthropology. Pretty much, I enjoy all fields of study. So I am not a person who just studies one area. I enjoy studying every area. And whenever I study a topic, I like to study every aspect of that topic, such as if there's the topic of, say, whatever topic is in the media or that there is, I never take one side. So, I mean, we have many topics that are really, really big these days. I never take one side. I always like to look at it from every single side because then that way I never get angry or upset with anyone because I can see every person's point of view. Even though I have my own views, I can still understand why somebody else might have theirs. Which you could see why people may have a harder time with me as well, because it's hard to see someone else's point of view. But anyway, that's a little bit about me. And now I have a lot of different struggles in life, but I still find that, I had to figure out how I'm going to make videos. How am I going to get a message out there of being positive and loving yourself? So now I'll get a little more into this video. And it's a little girl here to kind of keep you company in the video. One of the topics that I kind of really want to talk about today and is really learning how to be positive and truthful with yourself. I have learned, especially in life now, is that many times being honest with myself has not always been very easy. And by being honest with myself, I mean by being able to shut off every outside avenue. I mean, in all the outside stimuli, which is from the internet, TV, everything coming in from the outside, and just listen to me. And then ask myself, why am I doing this? Who am I? What am I like? Why do I feel this way? Do I like what I'm doing? Do I like myself? And see what answers back. It's not always easy living in a world where everything is trying to give you an answer, because it's kind of like the world wants to give you answers to questions before you can even ask them. I mean, you can't even ask a question before you're given an answer. And many times we find ourselves upset, angry, or not really being honest with who we really are. We end up living a shell of ourselves, which the reason I say that is because being autistic means, I don't like to say high functioning, but I was able to mask well enough that I didn't really know who I was. And as time went on and when the mask had to come off, I had to learn myself again. Many times, many people live in a world in which they're trying to be someone that they're not. Every day, they put on another face, another person. And instead of being quiet and instead of saying, okay, let me deal with who I am, they don't. Because the struggle of trying to deal with the person they are can become terribly overwhelming. I mean, we look in the world of today, how many people can actually deal with themselves? It's not always easy to just sit down and say, okay, let me deal with myself. Therefore, it helps to be able to meet someone like a life coach, because many times we look for therapists, but therapists are there to help you deal with your past, whereas a life coach is there to help you live life. Life can be very difficult going in the present and in the future, where sometimes we're not necessarily trying to handle our past, but we're trying to figure out who are we right now and where can we go forward? How do we get there forward? So one of the ways that a life coach helps is by giving strategies on being able to get used to who you are as a person. I took up life coaching and became a life coach because I had a wonderful life coach who helped me to be able to live life and to find coping strategies to live life better. And being able to deal with yourself is being able to heal whatever hurts that were in the past and then be able to forgive yourself in the present. It's kind of like finding that child who was hurt because that whatever is in the past is bothering you in the present. It's kind of like it's still there, but it's still holding on, and that child part of you is still there. When I was growing up, I was always afraid of throwing up in public. It was like one of my biggest fears. But I didn't realize that when I was a little girl, an incident happened where I felt so embarrassed because I became ill that that incident haunted me for years. And it took me until I was about 30 before I could deal with it. But when I forgave and I let that my little girl self know it was okay, suddenly I became free. Many times, if there's something, if we're afraid of being embarrassed, if we're afraid of falling, if we're afraid of people making fun of us, if we feel insecure about ourselves, somewhere as a child, there is a little boy, there's a little girl who was embarrassed, who felt insecure, who was afraid to be themselves. And it's time to go back to that little kid. It's time to say, hey, it's okay. It's all right. You didn't understand. Maybe you said something that you didn't understand the meaning of, and maybe your parents, maybe your family members just jumped all over you and got so angry and you didn't know, so now you just clam up and afraid to talk. You're afraid to say things, so you try to put on another air. You try to be afraid. But maybe that little kid, you got to go back and find that kid and say it was okay. You didn't mean to say what you said. You didn't know that it was going to cause the problems that it was. You didn't know that. Go back and get that little kid, because you see that little child is still there. Problem is that you're trying to heal that kid there, but you got to bring the kid where you are. And the way to do that is not to do it in a busy setting. The way to heal that little kid is to have a planned time to do it. Not when you're busy, not when you got a lot of stuff to do. You got to plan time. So if you watch this video and you know that you have a hurt child in you, think about what it is that happened. Because somewhere, say if you are very insecure and somebody can say something and it just ruins your day. Such as, if someone doesn't compliment your outfit or someone disagrees. Many times insecurities can come out in a lot of different ways. But sometimes we want to think that we're more secure than what we really are. But say an insecurity can be that you're doing great and then someone disagrees with you. Their disagreement didn't, it wasn't that they disagreed with you. It was the fact that it felt as though that they were rejecting you as a person, not disagreeing with what you had to say, or maybe saying, well, I don't take your advice. It was as though they were saying, I don't like you. Well, now when that happens, not at that time, but think about it and say, what time did I feel as though somebody rejected me? When was I feeling rejected as a child or even as a teenager? When was the first time I felt as though I was rejected, that somebody turned away and I began to feel the first signs of insecurity, that I wasn't good enough, that I was not the best person, that I was not loved, that I was not cared for, that I was not the best person that I could be, that somehow I was not loved the way I needed to be loved. And then when you're able to find that, take time, find a space, whether it's your room, whether it's some place, could be a car, but it needs to be some place that you find safe, where you know you're not going to be disrupted. Because if you're in a place where you're going to be disrupted, that's going to be a problem. So it's got to be a place where you know that you're not going to be interrupted. And you sit there, you turn off things. You may want to say that you get maybe go on the internet, find some type of meditation music, and calm yourself. And then think back. Allow yourself to think at the first time you felt terrified, the first time you felt as though you weren't loved, the first time that you felt maybe people treated you badly, the first time you felt you did a horrible mistake and everyone hated you for, the first time you felt the feelings of rejection, anger, frustration, the first time you felt you weren't good enough. And when you go back and get that child, go back and get that little boy, that little girl, go back and get them and say, hey, look, it wasn't your fault. You got to go back and tell them it wasn't your fault. Whatever happened to you, whatever you did, whatever happened, all of that, it wasn't your fault. The way you are now isn't your fault. What happened to you isn't your fault. The way you turned out isn't your fault. When you look at yourself in the mirror and you see the hurt, you see the scars, you see the pain, you see the bruises, you see the life of wreckage, you must go back and say, it's not your fault. You didn't do this to yourself. It's not your fault. You had a lot of bad things happen, but you got to go back and tell that little kid, it wasn't your fault. Because as long as you keep blaming yourself and keep thinking somehow you are at fault for the things that happen, then you're never going to heal from it. But when you can say, it's not your fault. You didn't cause any of this. You didn't do this to yourself. You didn't bring this upon yourself. You're going to be able to start healing yourself by saying, okay, I didn't do this to myself. I didn't try to hurt myself. I wasn't trying to do these things. They happen. And once you realize that, you'll be able to mend the hurt between you and that hurt child that's still there. And once you do, you can let that hurt kid go away. Your hurt self, that little child of you, you can let them go away. And then you begin to mend yourself as an adult and realize that who you are now, that who you are, whatever you're doing, whatever is going on in your life, it doesn't matter. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care what's going on. I don't care where you are. When you realize that it's not your fault, that you didn't plan to end up like this is not somehow your doing, and you stop blaming yourself for all the things that's going on, you realize, okay, things happen, things can go wrong. But when you stop being so cruel and so hard, and you forgive that little kid and you let that little kid know, hey, look, you didn't mess up. You didn't do this. It's okay. You were a kid. Maybe others didn't understand you. Maybe other people didn't get you. But now you can go back and comfort yourself. You can comfort your inner child. You may have to cry. You may have to hold yourself. You may need to have a pillow just to squeeze, to hold, to give yourself the comfort that you're looking for. And then don't be afraid to comfort yourself. Sometimes we can be afraid to give ourselves the comfort and love that we need. Just because you become an adult, it doesn't mean that you no longer need comfort. Don't be afraid to find comfort in an object, an inanimate object. Maybe it's a pillow. Maybe it's a stuffed animal. Maybe it's a blanket, something cuddly. Don't be afraid to find comfort. Because you see, as much as there's things outside of the world that can cause harm, there are many things within us that we still need healing. And that child within inside of us is still calling out to be cuddled, to be loved. So now go love yourself. Go love the child. Go heal your inner self. Hopefully I will be making more videos. Even though this is called She's an Anomaly, my hope is that I will reach out to others who find themselves thinking that no one understands, that nobody knows what they're going through. But you know what? There's always somebody who knows. I don't claim to understand and know what you're going through, because I don't. But my hope is that maybe a little bit you'll find some solace somewhere to be able to know someone. I can't understand everything, and I'm not going to try to, but I do hope that you will be able to find the care, the love, and the support in someone saying, I get you, that I want to come alongside and give you a hand because I get it. I get that it's not always easy in life to find the best way to express yourself, the best way to live, and the best way to make it. Life is not always easy, but it's a whole lot easier when you have someone letting you know that they care. Maybe I don't understand everything every person is going through, but I can say this: I care. And I hope to the next time, I care and I love.